And I was like, what are you doing with your life? You're really smart. And so like, and I think people think I'm really weird at first when I do that.
Bitcoin, crypto,
Ethereum, crypto assets,
NFT.
Welcome to Not Another Crypto Show. I'm your host, Allan Scott. And the point of the show, for those who've never listened, which might include our guest, is just an opportunity to learn about what is happening in Web3, in crypto. We hear the stories, we read the headlines, we follow the tweets, but we don't get to see or hear the people behind them, the people that are doing the hard work to make the changes that we all believe are so badly needed, which is why I was very excited to get our guest on the show. I had seen her stuff on LinkedIn. I was impressed. I loved everything I read. And I thought, even if I could get 15 minutes of her time to introduce herself to all of you, and thank you so many. I mean, we were on 26,000 of you now listening to the show. We only launched 6 weeks ago, which is unbelievable considering we do no promo, no advertising, and no marketing. Thank you to every single one of you. I couldn't wait to get Kelly on the show. So I'm going to do a terrible job of introducing you. So what I'd like is I'm just going to say, if you would be kind enough to introduce yourself to our audience, and that would be a great way to start.
Sure. Hi, my name is Kellyanne Collins. I have worked in Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3. So I've gone from doing national, international campaigns to now building in the metaverse and have a whole metaverse team, which is very exciting. Other than that, some, quick facts. I was one of the very first bloggers, one of the first 10. I was a Google influencer. I used to be one of the people who had to come to get your Gmail email account.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, back when that was exclusive.
That's incredible, because I remember those days and getting so excited in the hopes that I'd be chosen to get given an email. And I was a blogger, but not probably as early as you, but back in 2011. And I loved it. I loved the idea of it back when it was kind of long. I still do. I mean, obviously, we do long form. That's the point of the podcast. That's the form of our newsletters. And I've got a bunch of things to unpack with you. So I'm going to start with this. For those that don't know the difference between Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3, how would you, someone who is very good with words, describe the differences?
Web 2 was basically Netscape, AOL. Web 1 got you into the internet. So that was like a browser. Web 2 was social media, blogs, where people were able to actually communicate together online. That was MySpace, Friendster, Facebook. Now, Web 3 is an immersive experience where you can basically hop into your browser and interact. So it's like Twitter and the internet had a baby. That's the way I like to explain it. So you can literally go in and talk. If you are wearing, AV headset, you can, have a 360 view of what's going on. So it's a more immersive internet.
So would you say that Web 1 was you talking to one, Web 2 was you talking to many in the fact of social networks, and Web 3 is you getting a chance to own some of the things you see and to use multiple technologies to talk to many people at the same time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As far as Web 1, that was you're just putting information out there and you're hoping someone sees it. You're not sure. We had those little web counters, and that's how we knew if people were on our website. We'd be like, and looking at that every day to see if people came. And then Web 2, you could talk to each other, you could publish. So that's how I became a blogger. I was a journalist. I worked at USA Today and I ran the newsroom there. And as soon as I could blog, I was all about it. I tell people now and they look at me like, okay, but it was revolutionary because people could publish. Before that, only newspapers could publish or magazines. So it was very one way. So Web 2 made it more of a two-way conversation. You could talk to each other in the comments. That's kind of how social media started, with message boards yelling at each other in the comments. And then Web 3, you can own your own content, immersive experiences, actually be in a virtual space together. There are whole communities that, everyone owns, which is really interesting too, because you actually own the spot.
I love that. What was the first thing you blogged about when you blogged for the first time?
nothing. Like it was like, it's snowing. Like I don't know. Let me think. What was my first ever? So I started blogging before their blog software existed. And I had a website because I had a newspaper that I had launched. Like I've always published and owned different media companies. So I had something called earonyourhead.com. And actually, Ben Affleck, he had a website at the time too. And we like cross promoted each other's stuff. So I met a lot of like early web people back then. It was just like trends, things that were happening. It was basically news because I went from USA Today to that because I was like, I want to do my own thing. Wow. And it was really interesting because like a lot of the famous people had their own websites and we were like link sharing back and forth. So I, for some reason, thought people would care about what I was doing. So I would put up a page every day with what I was doing. It's snowing, it's something, it's blah, blah, blah. Next thing I knew, I had a really engaged audience of about 10,000 people following my ridiculous nothing. And yeah, so that was really interesting. Then I remember when you could actually chat and have a webcam, and I put a webcam in my office. Of course, like after, 30 people got in, it would crash. You could only have so many people at a time, and people would just keep hopping on to like watch me sit at a desk, and then they could chat and say, oh, who just walked behind her and things like that. So it was kind of funny. So I had that on in my office, as soon as I could do that. So we didn't have blogging software. So as soon as there's blogging software, I was all about it. And then Blogger was Blogger, the tool, blogger.com launched. They asked me to be one of their bloggers. And then that's how, because Google owned Blogger, that's how I became a Google influencer.
That's incredible. So you see the opportunity, you're working for USA Today, you see the opportunity, you launch your own thing, you immediately jump onto blogging, you're expressing your thoughts, you're sharing it, you've got a webcam so people can see into your life. That gets you excited, obviously. What made you excited about Web3? What was that next sort of evolution, if you will?
Web3 is just like that. So we have new technologies, new experiences. Everything was really exciting back then because it was all new. We could, set up a webcam in the office. People could see, but it was very one way. So what excites me about Web3 is that it's new. I call it the Wild Wild West, the new frontier. It's, and a lot of people who were left behind back then, a lot of people who were left behind when the internet started, it is their chance to get in because this is the beginning. I mean, within the next 5 years, it's going to be a $10 trillion, industry.
Asset class. Yeah.
And it's just growing and growing. In the metaverse, I believe by 2030, they're estimating 13 trillion. So, I mean, this is the time. That's what excites me too, is it's like, well, if you didn't get in on the internet, like I met people who did the first dating sites back then, the first ads, the first ad blockers. My friend created the actual ad blocker that, so you can get pop-ups, which all kind of like sprung up from message boards.
Wow.
Or like they didn't want to see ads, so they would hide it. And then my friend who had the most popular message board at the time, Philip Kaplan, so then he would like try new things. And then he tried text ads. So you see those on Google now, but he actually, started that. He was one of the very first people to start text ads. My other friends started pop-ups, dating, hot or not. I don't know if you remember that.
Of course.
Yeah. So like I knew the guys, who started that. And so like it was a small world. And I think like now it's a small world, especially in the metaverse. And I'm meeting all the people who are building for Netflix. I'm building for Snapple. I'm building for CBS. And it has the same vibe. So it's exciting. Yeah.
I think we're hearing that a lot. I think we recently heard that, I think it was Andrean Horowitz, who I'm probably butchering his name, so I apologize out there, was saying, he saw the exact same thing in 98 with computers and what computers were doing and the internet and how the internet was going to be something everyone had. And he said, I see the same excitement, the same enthusiasm, the same community development, except now we've got better tools and we can build faster. And we have communities, which we didn't have before. If someone was building something in Michigan and someone was building something in Warsaw, they couldn't connect to build something together. Now we can. And I think that's and I keep saying this to everyone, whether it's podcasting or whether it's Web3, we're very, very early. This is the very beginning of time. I had a guy come to me, I'll never forget, in the 90s. I mean, that's how old I am. And he had this idea for a digital camera. And I remember thinking, there is no way this will catch on. And he was explaining digital cameras to me. And I was like, listen, you got all these shops and they take the spool and they develop the spool and they put the spool out, like they'll go out of business. And what will people do if they're taking the photo and they can't find it? And he was explaining, no, it's held on this little chip and the chip is in I could not get my head around it. And I definitely missed out on that massive opportunity. And there's definitely been a couple after that. But this one seems so obvious to me that we can connect and that we can own, right? That our ancestors, not even 100 years ago, had farms, or we worked on a farm, and the only opportunities we had was the hopes that the farm owner would give us a piece of the land. And I feel like that's what Web3 is. Right now, a lot of us are working on other people's land. My data is being farmed by Google, by Snap, by TikTok, and sold off to other people, but I can't own equity into Snap, TikTok, or Facebook. And now maybe there's an opportunity where I can. And I think equity is more important than equality. It gives us power. How do you feel about that? And do you have any sort of thoughts around this space?
I mean, I love being able to, own a part of it. One thing that we're doing is helping companies get in and walking them through buying their land, building on their land. But yes, yeah. Right. You can have a Facebook account or page, but you do not own it. You can't do whatever you want in it. So that is one thing I definitely love about Web3 and the metaverse. I'm bullish on the metaverse, as you can tell.
Yes.
I mean, I love NFTs. I love crypto, but I think it's just all going to come together in the metaverse. Agreed.
I've got a question. Actually, I've got two questions on that. So let me start with the metaverse because it seems the most exciting. What is it about the metaverse that you think is will be the ecosystem for which we all eventually sign up for? Or why, should I say?
I mean, this is the new internet and people are going to be in it, whether they like it or not. So it's happening, whether you want to get in. People say they won't go in. You're going to be in there because your bank is going to say, go here for customer support. And it's their virtual world. Your hospital system or doctor, they're going to say, oh, okay, here, is for where you go for telehealth visits. Something that's really exciting to me is telehealth, because right now people are wearing Fitbits. You're kind of like already dipping your toe into the metaverse, even though you just don't even realize it. But you have a Fitbit, your information's in the cloud. In the future, they'll be able to, you'll wear something and you'll be able to get a checkup, in the metaverse.
I love that. And I agree. I think telehealth is massive. Why do we have to go to these health organizations when they can come to us? And we're already carrying some of the equipment that we'll need for them to look at our data, to work out if we're exercising or walking or doing the movement or following through on heart. I don't know if you know this, but a lot of people who have heart attacks have to do 6 weeks of rehabilitation. The problem they have is most people don't finish their rehabilitation after a heart attack. And that's because American side, not UK or the rest of the world. So apologies for everyone who isn't in the US, including myself. There's no way to track them. There's no way to make sure they're doing their work. And they're complaining that they can't get to the hospitals. And there's too much of a distance. And there's too much of a drive. And there's the issues of all kinds of things with petrol costs or energy costs on electric vehicles. And now, of course, we can see through these wearables that there is an opportunity to make sure that someone's doing their exercises or following through on their process of rehabilitation. So I agree with you. I think telehealth is definitely going to be one of the, I think e-commerce and telehealth are kind of the two massive pillars that will probably drive a lot of people to it. You can't see your doctor, as you said, but you can go into the metaverse and you can do your check-in or read the MRI results live with the doctor. And that's also very, very exciting. I think the opposite as well is this idea of, I love what you're wearing. I can buy it right now through the metaverse and go, I'll get that gorgeous necklace for my girlfriend and I'm going to get that painting for the back of my house. And that's also incredibly exciting.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of people do that. So when I'm in Decentraland, it's funny. I'll be wearing something and then people will buy it because they're able to click and see what it is. So they'll buy it. Something else that's really interesting is you can send things to people. You can send them gifts. You can send them, wearables, NFTs. And the first time I spoke in the metaverse, There's a show that someone named Simple does, and he and Canessa were interviewing me in Decentraland, and I received like 80 wearables because people were so excited about what I was saying.
That's amazing.
Sending all these wearables, and I was like, oh my gosh, wait, I have a full closet now. So, yeah. So I thought that was really interesting too. But yeah, you can buy what you see, and then you can send people. Like if you see a celebrity in the metaverse, say everyone was really excited when Paris Hilton was, in Decentraland. Literally, you have her wallet, and like you could send her things, and then maybe she'll wear it the next time she's in the metaverse.
See, that's incredible. I think that's absolutely, and it's so exciting. It was amazing. I think I watched an interview where Paris was asked, I think it was Jimmy Fallon, what is an NFT? And to hear her not only explain it perfectly, like absolutely perfectly, but the excitement of why this was something exciting, and then of course she DJ'd at an event, I think it was Decentraland, like all of that is super exciting. So you make the move, you jump across, your company is Volt Lab. For those that are listening, it's VULTLAB.com. And you've got a very impressive front page. I mean, I look at a lot of websites because the research is part of the job. But your website is fantastic. It starts off with the bold promise, as all great websites do. It then goes straight into why us, like why you should care and who you are and what you've done. And then you've got this incredible, I'm going to call it the Hall of Fame here. We've got HubSpot, CNN, Forbes, CNET, Yahoo News, Inc., CBS Interactive, and then straight into the team. And I think that's one of the reasons, again, I wanted you on the show, is because so many of the websites that are currently talking about Web 2 into Web 3, it's about the technology. It's about the money-making opportunity. It's about the case studies. But it's not about the people. And it's not about the why. And it's not about what we do. And I love that with yours, it was right there on the front page. This is exactly who we are. This is exactly what we do. And these are the people that get it done. Was that done on purpose?
I hate websites that are like so complicated and you're going through and you're like, okay, who are the people? What is this? And when I was talking to Ivan and his team, they do our design. I was like, no, I just want one. And they're like, just one page. I'm like, just one. I'm like, I just want one page. And I want people to know what they need to know, when they land there. And yeah, so like, what is our mission? What do we? Sorry, Alexa's talking to me right now. Sorry. But yeah, so as soon as you land there, and, we've been through several redesigns in the past, and, I just felt like this was also the time to go into like that 3D metaverse looking world. So when you go in there, you'll see it's very like 3D metaversey, and bringing Web 2 and 3 together, which we call 2.5.
I like that. Web 2.5. That's really good. I'm definitely going to be quoting you on the next time I bring that up in a podcast. So for those that don't know, could you explain what your company does other than connecting or using the power of humanity for Connected to Change? Give us a rundown. I know it's referral only, and that's important for anyone listening. You'll see at the bottom of the email, you can put forward what you want, but they do choose their clients. And I think that's another reason I wanted you on the show. So if you could tell us about what you do, how you serve. Okay.
All right. We do a lot, and I've actually launched several companies out of Volt Lab. So I had a really popular blog that had 3 million readers, and that was a while ago, like 10-ish years ago. And I started noticing a lot of, co-branded content and people wanting, me to do videos, or can you do what you're doing for us on social media, et cetera. And so I really just launched an agency and started doing that for brands. And our sweet spot with the blog was celebrity causes. And so we said it was like where pop meets power, the blog. So we featured celebrity causes and the softer side of politics, which has been difficult in the past 10 years. But it used to be like we would go to the White House, interview Obama's dog, or, the Easter egg role, feature things like that. Or we would go out with like John McCain and Joe Lieberman and talk about, their best friends. Or, a lot of celebrities were going into DC for causes. So my agency was built on that and these co-branded partnerships. So we started working with Conservation International and HP, and bringing in people like, into that campaign, the people who brought in were people like Julia Roberts or Edward Norton, Ian Somerhalder, and, doing things for, social good. And that's how we basically started. And we've changed, of course, through the years. And of course, so now we're building in the metaverse, and we're still doing these big campaigns. And we do a lot of work with places like National Minority Equality Forum, Opportunity at Work for, workforce development. Is like a lot of things have changed throughout the pandemic. So we're involved with campaigns with, CDC, FDA also, because they needed unique ways to reach people through the pandemic. And so that would mean like bringing an influencer into Twitch to talk about getting the COVID vaccine, and things like that. So of course, like we are diehard, 3D metaverse now, but I also launched with my team a metaverse news website, metaverse and NFTs. And then we have the pop launch. I have that with another team where we're launching and doing events in the metaverse. There are so many. Sometimes I bring my team members because I think I've got 6 or 7 companies now. I'm like, how many do we have now? Yeah. And I'll just be like, Caitlin, okay, am I forgetting a company? But they're all focused on, driving change and helping people get the word out about what they do, whether it's the metaverse or Twitter.
That's incredible. And obviously you're incredibly prolific. I mean, you've said it yourself in a couple of moments. You're literally everywhere. And I think one of your tweets that really got my attention was something like, people don't realize how busy I am, I've hardly got enough time for a smoothie or like a green juice in between calls and emails and everything else.
It is a miracle that I brushed my hair today. Yes. That's what I always tell people. And I think like a lot of people on the outside, they see me and my social media is kind of fun. And they're like, oh yeah, she's just sitting around having fun. No, I'm in meetings back to back, like 15, a day, sometimes more. And it's pretty like boom, boom, boom. And, then people will message me and say, will you work with me? That's why it's referral only, because every day we get at least 2 or 3 companies, organizations or something wanting to work with us. And it's just like too much. Like, and we've grown, like we double every year in size and everything. Wow. But, I have to do it at a realistic pace. So, yeah.
Actually, I'm asking this now. I'm completely making this about me. So I'm going to apologize, but I've only got a short period of time left on the show and I'm going to make it count. I, like you, have a couple of businesses which I run, and my biggest problem is hiring and getting the right people behind it, and deciding on human capital is my biggest issue. Financial capital, I'm happy to throw money at things, but I get very nervous in taking people on because I don't know their backgrounds, what they're doing, can they do their job? I'm not the world's greatest manager. I care too much maybe, and I need to kind of pull back. What is that like for you with so many businesses and so many people that running around? Do you have to sort of tell yourself that it's okay to maybe not have it at the standard that you're doing? I mean, as you said, you're doing so much in a day. Can you expect that from your staff? Is there a blueprint to your success?
A blueprint?
Any kind of formula, any kind of recipe?
Yeah. So each business or like, I like to think of them as like different units or divisions. Even though a lot of them are separate companies. There are different people and teams assigned to each one. Because at first I thought people could just help me with everything. And then I realized, and one of my friends who worked with me at USA Today, who's also worked with me, he's like, it's very hard to work with you because you can do a lot more than a lot of people. And you just, and I was like, okay. And I didn't get it for a while. And then I realized that a lot of people can't handle all the stuff. And it probably comes from me like managing newspapers and things, because I could manage all the teams for all the different sections. And I basically run it like that. So instead of having a life section or sports section, I have the metaverse group, and we have an awesome person managing those projects. And I have a partner there, like a business partner for that. So I have business partners for these different projects too, who help me run them. And so that's how I've been doing it. Is like the aces, someone that I work with, Jacob, he always says aces in their places, right? So if you have someone who loves the metaverse, they're really good, they can do this stuff, like then they're on the metaverse team. And then I try not to distract them with other things. Then we have the people who work on the nonprofit NGO. So we have like NGOs, we're working on like USAID and Gates Foundation over here. And then we're like, and we're going to build this thing in Decentraland. So I'm hopping from meeting about, okay, can we sell edibles in the metaverse? And to, another meeting that is like, okay, we're going to like do vaccines at barbershops. So it's a lot and all over the place. But aces in their places and having a team for each thing and then letting them like own it. So Caitlin does a really good job of owning what's called health champions with National Minority Equality Forum, CDC, and some other organizations and initiatives. And like, that's her thing. And she owns it, So I think letting people own it, it's hard. I think when you have a company to like step away, sometimes when you build it because you're used to doing everything on your own. And I think you have to accept that other people are not going to do it the same way you are, right? But that doesn't mean that they won't get it done in the way that it needs done. But, people have different processes. And that was one thing as I was building this company. We're going into 10 years now. We're about to celebrate 10 years. And
congratulations.
People don't realize like what a thing that is. And I tell my family, you understand, like it was rough. The first 3 years, I gave myself 3 years and I was like, if I can't do this, I'm going to give myself 3 years, put in the time. And if I'm not making enough money to pay my bills by 3 years, then I will go get a job. And so like, that's why I told myself, of course, I was making enough money to pay my bills and hire people. But I just was dedicated enough to be like, okay, I'm not going to make much money for 3 years. And then I'm going to like build this thing. Yeah. But you have to be willing to like also sacrifice, give up some control, and then have aces in their places.
And where do you meet these incredible people you're getting a chance to work with?
I mean, I've worked with a lot of great people through the years. So I did have like jobs, at places like USA Today. And you might have heard, I used to try to pull people, anyone good I've worked with, I try to pull them. There was someone we worked with at several companies, and we were on the agency side. She was on the client side. And she wanted to do something different and left her job. And I was like, hey, what are you doing? So she was like the client. And now she's my chief of staff. So if I see someone good, I'll go to them and I'll just, ask them.
But like, that's my question, right? Like you are so busy. Where are you having the time to see someone good? I mean, you're like, you've created this multiple bubble with like multiple things inside them all running at the same time. When are you getting a chance to go to networking events to see if someone's good or go see someone else's company and see if they're good?
I met a ton of people when I had my blog because we also do events. So I was able to build up a really big network back then. We did several events a week. So we did hundreds of events a year. So I met so many people. I was out there a lot. Yeah. I meet people sometimes at Web Summit. I'm usually in Europe in the fall. The answer is I don't know. But if I see someone, like I was at a funeral and I ran into one of my relatives and I was like, what are you doing with your life? You're really smart. And so like and I think people think I'm really weird at first when I do that, or I'll DM someone, hey, what are you doing? Like, what's your business strategy? And I'll be like, do you want to like come do something? And I think at first people think she's on crack, but then they finally figure it out.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Firstly, a big shout out to Caleb Parker, who put me onto your Twitter, which allowed me to see your content. Caleb, thank you very much. I did take him to dinner last night to thank him. So I feel like I don't need to do this extra thank you, but I'm going to do it anyway. Kelly, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. It's very rare that we get someone on the show who's as excitable, but also informative as you've been. For those people that want to find out more about what you're doing, to learn about the space that you're in, what information can you give them? Where can they go to find out more?
You can Google me. But I'm also just, it's CAC, ITSKAC everywhere, just literally anywhere you want to go, you'll find me. So yeah, it was great being here. Thank you so much. It was great chatting.
It's an absolute pleasure. And when you're at Web Summit next, I hopefully will see you there. It's one thing we have in common. I'm from the events background. And unlike you, however, I think I have my head down looking at lists or trying to work out what the point of the event is and just following that as opposed to noticing all the incredible people around. So those people listening to the show, there's a couple of massive takeaways that we need to take from here. Number one is focus on a problem. And the longer you can work on that problem, the better you are. We heard from our guest today that 3 years is the amount of time she gave herself to work on a problem. The longer you can make that runway, the better chance of success you have. She also gave herself a success metric. What does success look like? She can pay her bills and she can pay the bills of her staff. That's fantastic advice. The next thing that she said, which I absolutely loved, was how she picked up the same excitement around when the first internet came and Web 2 was a big thing, and how this is the early days of Web 3. Right now, people are freaking out about the price of crypto and digital assets and NFTs, and OpenSea has dropped by 98%. Well, listen, the tulips died after the massive stock market tulip explosion, but then the stock market became a real thing. We need these massive builds up and blows up and the tide to pull out to work out who's naked so that we can start swimming again as a group, as a whole. So that's 3 things to take away from an absolutely incredible show. And if we ever get a chance again to get you on, we'd love you. Thank you for having us. Thank you for being on our show today.
Thank you so much. Yes, this was great. Thanks.
Making a high-quality podcast like this one takes a lot of work. That's a fact. But not when you hire a podcast company. With our white glove experience, we handle everything for you. From guest outreach all the way through to publishing and promotion, we handle it all. You show up to hold great interviews and build relationships with your guests, and we take care of everything else. Podcasting is not just about the audience. Every podcast interview is the start of a new relationship. With a weekly podcast, you'd build relationships with 52 ideal partners or prospects through your podcast interviews over the next 12 months. Do you believe that 52 new relationships would help grow your business? We do. Contact Jason at apodcastcompany.com and let's talk.